Dude, you know what? You're actually right. I do watch some podcasts back because the two Johnnies, and like I'd love to see what jerseys they're wearing.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
No, it's funny. Like one of the podcasts I listen to, he's a comedian.
Yeah.
And he wears these like shades as well.
Yeah.
But he goes on these big rants, and
Yeah.
like when you can listen to it.
Yeah.
But he does like a lot of satire. So sometimes you need to
yeah.
be able to see his like facial expression,
Yeah.
because you're like,
I do the same with the.
is he being serious? Like it's hard to tell, and sometimes you just want to see how good of a job he's doing keeping a straight face.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good.
All good.
Okay. We're just going to talk about Dave's life, so you're going to find out everything about him.
Sure, they already know.
And I don't know a whole pile, so I'm looking for. I know more. You probably think I know more than I do, but I don't know that much.
We'll find out.
We'll start when you first came to Toronto, and whatever happens after that, you can let me know.
Yeah, so it's coming up to the 7-year anniversary. We're about to go into our 8-year. Myself and my wife we moved here in February 2018. The plan was a 2-year visa. So we'd sign up for that.
It's always the plan.
It's always the plan, 2-year visa. That obviously brought us to February 2020. And even coming into February 2020, we'd applied for the extension because we're like, you know what? I had just gotten into like the snowboarding, and we're like, no, let's do one more season. Let's stay here. So we extended, and sure, a couple of weeks later, the borders got shut down. Everything got shut down. There was no, didn't get back to Ireland for another 18 months or 20 months, whatever it was. So we're stuck for another year, and at that point, we didn't actually know how long we were going to stay. So we were just taking it year by year. And our first arrived then in February 2021, Hayley. She's now nearly 4. And we said we'll stay a little bit longer. And it was around the point that she hit a year that we did start thinking maybe we'll move back to Ireland now. Because, the plan was to be temporary, like have an adventure and then go back to Ireland. And we actually did start seriously looking at Daft.ie, looking at places for a couple of months. And just the prices had, if you're paying attention, it's not just in Ireland or Canada, but all around the world, property prices just took off like crazy. So we were looking at places in the southeast, Wexford's, Kilkenny, Waterford's, and the prices were just mental. And we're just gonna have to park her for now, and we'll come back to it when maybe things are a little bit calmer. So left it another little bit, and then number 2 arrived. Tiernan arrived in June of 2023, and so time has run on. In a couple of months before Tiernan arrived, I set up my own business, and that's gone from strength to strength as well. And so right now we're here, and we're here at least for the medium term. But there's always this romantic idea of getting back to Ireland. We just don't know when. Yeah.
That could sum up the whole every episode I've ever done. For most people, is this romantic notion of going back there, but don't know when. Essentially, some people have it clear in their minds.
Some people are actually very. I'm a big fan of your podcast, and I listen to almost all the episodes. Some people are very definitive, no, this is Canada is life now. We're not moving back. And then obviously there's fine. A chunk of people, including ourselves, who are not in the short term, but have a romantic idea of getting back. Maybe not as practical of how to make it happen, but have this idea of Ireland is still home. We'll be back at some point. We just don't know when.
Do you think? Well, actually, I'll ask you. Why did you guys come here in the first place?
It's funny. We knew we were coming to Canada nearly 2 years before we actually moved here. At least 18 months. I was working in Pfizer at the time, and I gave them a good 7-8 months notice before I actually left. Maybe even longer. Actually, no, sorry. I gave Pfizer a year's notice before we came to Canada. I told them a year in advance, and initially they were saying, no, don't go. You can actually get an extended leave. They thought we were just doing it because the plan was.
You wanted more money.
No, it wasn't more money. The plan was I wasn't going to work in Pfizer right up to the point we moved to Canada. Me and Mags were getting married 7-8 months later, and the plan was to actually go and do an extended amount of travel. So that was how I shared it. I was look, get married, then we're actually taking 4 months to travel, and they were don't worry, we can facilitate 4 months. But then I was like, yeah, but then we're moving to Canada. We're doing like 2 years in Canada. And they were like, oh yeah, we can't hold a job for that amount of time.
Yeah. You're one of the only people, like the vast majority of people you meet here, immigrants, particularly Irish, they go home, they come here, they might come with their partner or they meet their partner here and they move back to Ireland to get married and stay home. Whereas you did the opposite. You got married in Ireland and then just disappeared and came here.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I haven't heard of many people. There's like a handful, but there's not many people of the Irish community here that you talk to that got married at home and then came here. Or there's a lot of people that we know that will have like Canadian partners as well. And that's half the reason. Like a lot of people, when I moved here to begin and I started working, just assumed Mags was Canadian. They couldn't contemplate that. I would just come to Toronto of my own free will. But yeah, so like we knew like well in advance, it was actually Mags's idea. So Mags planted the idea at least. She came home, she was working in AXA Insurance. She works in finance as well. But she came home one day and she just, we'd just be chatting about how the day went. And she was like talking about whoever in there and such person was in visiting. And she was like, it's just weird in AXA. She's like, even all the Irish people that are on the exec team, they've all like worked abroad for a couple of years. They were here and then now they're back in Ireland or whatever. I was like, actually in Pfizer, it's the same. Like a lot of the people that had done well and like could move through the ranks had like worked on different Pfizer sites in the States or mainland Europe and then had come back to Ireland. And so we were like talking about it. And we're like, oh, I wonder would that help us with our careers? But then also we were saying, how cool would it be to actually immerse yourself completely in another culture? Because we had gotten to the point where we were traveling a bit, but it was always like a very fixed time, and then you would come back, and we were like, imagine you were like just living in it and immersed in it every day. Like it would just feel like a constant for a long time. It's felt like a constant holiday because everything is so new. It's like a novelty as well. Even still, like it's -16 today. It still doesn't feel like normal. It kind of still feels like a bit
I don't think -16 would ever feel like coming down that bike there now today. I don't think I can say it ever feels normal when you're cycling.
It's always worse on the bike. Yeah, it's worse on the bike. So it was Mags's idea, and then it wasn't like we will go to Canada or we'll go to Toronto. It was like, okay, let's do somewhere. Let's go work abroad for a year. And we just started whittling down the list. We started with about 15 places.
Did they have anything in common, like English language, finance, jobs, things like that?
The English language was like, was a common part of it. We weren't considering like Africa or China or anywhere like that. It was,
but even like any of the other European countries that you could move to of your own without any visa issues or anything.
True,
like that.
yeah. We like the UK was an option, Germany was an option, Czech Republic was an option, but yeah, like we kind of whittled it down from, I guess a lot of it was based on research of who's actually where's easy to move to, like who's actually accepting inward immigration, because not every, like, it doesn't make sense for every country because it depends on how their economy is doing. But we whittled it down to 3, and the 3 of them were completely different. So we had Toronto, we had Dubai, and then we had Singapore. So we had 3 different parts of the globe, and then it was like trying to whittle it down to Toronto. And I felt that Singapore would be too much of a culture shock. It was before either of us had actually been to Singapore. Like, we've been to Singapore since, but it's before we went to Singapore. So we just felt the culture shock might be a bit too much. And then Dubai, there's pros and cons with Dubai. Obviously, they've got 0% income tax. So a lot of people, especially a lot of teachers, Irish teachers are going there right now.
Friends out there, and my father could never comprehend why I didn't go there, why I chose to come to North America.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I know, but it's at the same time, because like 98% of people in Dubai are like expats. There's not much of a culture to speak to, and like one of my kind of great hobbies is like geography and history, and like the whole culture side of it as well. So I felt like we'd be missing out on that side too much. So Toronto it was. It helped that it's like Canada's business capital. It's actually one of the, like, in terms of like North America, it places quite well as well. It's like the second biggest financial services after New York. It's got the third biggest tech scene after San Fran in New York as well. So in terms of how it was comparing,
It's like an advertisement for
it
Toronto.
yeah, it made sense.
Love it.
Yeah.
No, but it is, because people, I often find myself, I don't know, do you find this, like explaining to people at home how good Toronto is and the benefits it has, whatever it might be, whether it's something as simple as weather, diversity in weather, but just
Yeah.
what you just said there, I wouldn't have known that off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I just would have known. I always go that it's the fourth biggest city in North America, you know.
Fourth biggest city in North America. Yeah. And I saw over the weekend, we've just hit 7 million people in the like greater Toronto area as well. Which is kind of insane when you think we've got about 5 million on the island of Ireland.
Yeah.
And we've got 7 million people essentially in the city and like the suburbs as well.
Yeah. People obviously want to come here.
Yeah.
Know, so
very
stay. It looks like as well.
Very popular. Yeah.
We know each other. I'm curious. Toronto. You decided on Toronto, and in terms of the visa situation and things like that, relatively straightforward.
Relatively straightforward. We're lucky, but me and Mags are chartered accountants. Irish chartered accountants. I've done my Canadian CPA since as well, which helps me cover the US as well when it comes to work. So yeah, finance is always in demand in like a big business city like Toronto. So it was relatively straightforward. There was a lot of paperwork, but in terms of jobs, there's like a reciprocal agreement. There's maybe 7 countries that are part of it, but it's like the kind of accounting exams are very standardized across Canada, US, Ireland, UK, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa. I'm not sure if that's 7 or 8, but it actually makes it easier to move to any of those countries because your designation gets recognized straight away, as opposed to starting from the bottom of the ladder and like having to redo all the exams.
I'm always jealous of people like you, because in my line of work, obviously I'm in a unique situation working in Canada when I probably should be working in Ireland realistically in terms of my line of work. But there's not many other places I can go. There are, but it's very, very niche. Whereas I'm just jealous of, your kind of line of work where, there is always that possibility to just go, to other places. And, it seems relatively straightforward to transfer. But did that ever cross your minds even during the pandemic or post getting permanent residence, of leaving and not necessarily going back to Ireland, maybe going somewhere else?
Not really. It was always a binary choice of Ireland or Canada. My sister lives, it's funny with my family because it feels like we're very spread out, because I've got one sister in Portugal, I got one sister in New Zealand. But following the sister that lives in Portugal, following her stories, I do like say to people now, I could see the temptation if it weren't for the kids.
Yeah.
It'd just be too much work with the kids now, relocating them as well into like a Portuguese society. But if it weren't for the kids, I would strongly consider Portugal, because there's a lot of things that country has going for it. We got to go visit her over Christmas. We spent like a couple of days visiting her.
Brilliant, yeah.
She's living in Lisbon. It's beautiful. The weather's beautiful. The big differentiation between Portugal and in a lot of the other Western countries is they've managed to keep their cost of living like somewhat under control, whereas all the other countries, groceries, cost of housing, everything else is just skyrocketed.
I've thought about this. Like, I was hell bent on going to North America, but now, maybe getting a bit older, maybe Europeans tend to be more settled in their ways.
It's actually funny. I know like there's been a couple of people like Canadians that have come to me going like, why did you come here? They're like, why would you move from Europe to here? They want to move from here to Europe.
Yeah.
And I always say, for exact reasons that you want to move to Europe, it's like whatever you grew up with and you're familiar with, you kind of take for granted, and like you've experienced it for so long. And it's just a sense of adventure. You want to go and just see what something else is. So like North America, like they're pros and cons. I always say to people, like, it's not like Canada is better than Ireland or vice versa. It's just pros and cons. And you kind of just go for, I experienced this for, I think I was 28 coming over here. You just go for that, like something a little bit different, just to experience it. Like me and Mags had never even been to North America. We committed to moving here, no idea what to expect. But I said to her, even if it's terrible, like there's nothing stopping us jumping on a plane and going home 3 weeks later.
Was there anything that you found initially surprising, whether that be positive or negative, when after you first arrived?
I think we arrived in February, so it's still quite cold. Like I always say to people, or especially Irish people, when they ask, the seasons always tend to run like a month behind what they run in Ireland. So people in Ireland will expect winter to start in November. I say, no, we're only getting into winter as it goes like into December. And it's like really the middle of winter in January and February. Yeah. Those are the two coldest months of the year.
February is essentially spring back home.
Exactly. Yeah. February, spring. Exactly. Whereas here you're like still in the dead of winter pretty much. So we, getting used to it. I think we were mentally prepared knowing it was going to be cold. It was good. I think it was like positive. I think even within 2 days we were like, okay, we're staying. Yeah. With no need to book the flights for 2 weeks from now, or from what we've seen so far, it's like pretty cool. Yeah. Like just the structures, just that like whole skyscraper and the engineering, I'd say is like amazing compared to what we're used to, particularly in Ireland, where it's uncommon to go more than 4 stories. Yeah. To just like casually see like a 50 story is like incredible.
Yeah, I think my condo building is taller than the tallest building in Ireland, and it's dwarfed by the buildings either side of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just puts it into perspective.
Yeah.
They we know each other through a very positive experience we've obviously had in Toronto and been involved with GAA.
Yeah.
You strike me as a person who's extremely diligent and dedicated to the GAA. Was it like that in Ireland? Has it changed since you moved here? What's it been like?
No, it was always a big part of my life. It's a big part of our family's life as well. Like I guess kind of all started with, it's funny, I still get like slagged about it because I've changed over the years, but apparently, so Wexford won Leinster final and then All Ireland final in 1996. I apparently read a book for the entire Leinster final. Can't remember what age I was, but like, yeah, they were like, we're not going to waste a ticket on you coming to any more games, because, my dad was like desperately like trying to get me into it, but I was a bit more of a student when I was younger, and then kind of more of a late bloomer. I got into it more as I like turned 10, 11, as opposed to like, there's some kids that are just like amazingly into it, like 4 or 5 straight into it. I was like more of a late bloomer. We were lucky, come from like a very good club in Wexford as well, St. Martin's. I was part of a good group of guys as well, so took it really seriously. And probably similar to yourselves, like growing up in 6 Mile Bridge and you're expecting to win county titles. We were expecting to win county titles as well, not just in the hurling is number 1, so we are like a hurling club by like historically, a lot of prominent players have gone through the club. Rory McCarthy and George O'Connor and John O'Connor, and we have like Martin Quigley, who was like 3 or 4 All-Stars, was my coach for under 14, and then George O'Connor, who was like an All-Stars in both hurling and football, was my coach for under 16, and then you had Rory McCarthy was my coach for under 21, like another All-Star. So we had that type of like atmosphere in the club. So it was big part of our lives. My dad was like selector with the senior team. My brother was playing. Would have played like a lot more football actually than hurling for me and my brother in particular. We were kind of a little bit took to the football a little bit easier, and it actually there went like a couple of years where I was actually just playing football in my like earlier 20s as I was trying to balance like work life and starting in work life. And then coming here, it's my first year. I actually just played football. So the plan was, by that stage it was going out with a Kilkenny woman. Mags had kind of gotten me back in love with hurling because I kind of got a bit disillusioned. Because
delighted to hear that.
Yeah. Wexford had a couple of not great years, let's say, and it was a bit frustrating, and we stopped going to the hurling. And then Kilkenny, obviously being Kilkenny, were doing great and like kind of that like dream team. And so Mags I would go with Mags. I would be a neutral. She's obviously going as a hardcore Kilkenny fan. I'm going as a neutral, and I started to appreciate hurling more for the like the game itself, as opposed to be like completely in on one team and then like being incredibly disappointed if your team doesn't win. Yeah. So I was actually going just like admiring it as the skill levels and as a neutral, and kind of got me like back into it, and I started hurling again, and then I dropped the football and it was just hurling, and then came over here, and then I reached out to there was like a guy over here. He's from Wexford. There's not that many Wexford people in the city, but one of the guys that was here, he was 2 years behind me in secondary school, so I reached out to him for advice. I was like, what do I do with this? Where would you recommend living? What do you do for, recommend any banks? He's giving me answers, and he's like, by the way, I'm sending you a transfer form for Durham, who are just football.
Yeah.
So just by virtue of, there was him, and then there was another guy from Wexford as well with them. It's kind of that Wexford link just brought me to the football the first year. And then the two of them left Canada at the end of the year. So I was like, right, I'm back to Ireland.
That your connection with this football club is solely based on the fact that you knew one other person from Wexford who happened to be in Toronto, who I assume you weren't best friends with this person or anything like that.
No, yeah, he was 2 years behind me in school. Yeah, we became a lot closer after moving, like both being here. You kind of like have the common bonds, but yeah, we wouldn't have been socializing. That's
your choice of club, though, and that you're still affiliated with that club, Durham.
Like Mags joined as a result of me. She was like the treasurer for Durham for 2 years. It's just like funny. It can be the like smallest little strands can bring someone to within the club.
Yeah. And what has, like, for me, the GEA has been huge over here. It's been times that I've pulling my hair out, and probably you've been an ear for me sometimes with things like that. True. But they're my own things I have to work on. But for the most part, it's obviously been a massively positive experience, and something I would struggle without if I lived abroad. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Not to sound like corny, but the like club. So you and I are both part of Napirsig, Hurling, and Camogie Club, but that club was almost taking the place of like extended family especially for me. I'm more involved in the club. Obviously Mag's like lesser so, but like me in particular. And when you come in, like we didn't know other than this, other than like Pierce and like I think it was probably him. We didn't know anybody else. We came here, nobody, no family, no nothing. Like none of the support structures that you take for granted when you're back with like kind of long-term friends and your family back in Ireland.
Even the aunt that you don't talk to, you only talk to twice a year, but
you can just call up and just call in a favor if you need, like my car broke down, I need someone to come help me, or my house, I can't get into my house, can I go over to yours? Like the like group of lads like has just been like, this has been made like a major difference in terms of being able to settle in and just having a support network. Even nobody in the club would remember, but I remember when Haley was born, and it was February 21. It was lockdown. We had nobody. It was like me and Mags like trying to figure out like a newborn baby for the first time. Couldn't have anyone even visit, so it was like the stress. And then I just get this like message into the group going, "Hey Dave, so we're after doing like a whip around. We're after getting you like a gift for the baby." It was like a $600 gift voucher for Amazon, which was just, when you're going through that like lonely period where you like everybody's in lockdown and you have no support and you're feeling down and you're like, things just seem crazy. And then just like that small little, like, we're here to like support you, like just made a massive difference.
Yeah. When I and I fully agree with that sentiment. When I imagine having a child in the future, I imagine taking the child, home, having family members around, everyone holding the child, passing it around, deciding who looks like who and all that type of thing. And, just great moments like that. When Haley was born in February 2021, number one, you lived abroad, and number two, was in the middle of a lockdown.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was, I'll be honest, it was tough. It was very, very tough for both me and Mags. It was like not good for the mental health. I remember there was actually it was even just a couple of weeks before Haley was born. And I know I couldn't have been alone, but I was in the house and I was going crazy. And like a friend texted me, said, like, we've been texting, and he was like, "Do you want to come over and watch the hockey?" Like, it was the opening game. The Leafs were about to kick off.
You're not going to name him in case
I won't name him.
Protocol.
Yeah, protocol. I won't name any names. But like I went over, I was like, I have to do this because I'm otherwise going to go crazy. And I felt like you have to like protect your own mental health to be able to support someone. And I didn't feel like I could support Mags and then the baby if my head was in too bad of a place. So I was like, I just have to get out. I'll take my risks to be honest, or take the risk to be honest. But like Mags didn't talk to me for like 2 or 3 days after. She was like so pissed off because she was in like high alert mode of like you get COVID and you can't come into the delivery room. I'm going to have to deliver a baby by myself. Like there's nobody else that can come in with me. But yeah, that was like tough. And then like the first kind of 4 months, it wasn't really till like June, July. They were still like the lockdown finished, but there was no vaccines. They were still rolling out vaccines and things. And like, it was just really lonely. The funny thing for me, like, you know me, and I don't drink. And there was this like weird period where there's some sort of coping mechanism where there was like alcohol in the fridge and it might be like a Tuesday. And I would like just take something out and start drinking. And Mags was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "I don't know."
And you'd never drink.
I never drink. I have no interest in drinking, and haven't touched a drop in like 3 years. But there was a stage where I was like, I'll have like a casual like 1 or 2, you know, like social drink. And then it turned into like a Tuesday on my own. I felt like it was, I'm sure other people do, but it's like some sort of crutch or something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of.
But
it's kind of it's a way to kind of compartmentalize the day. You know, we do it with lunch and dinner, but
yeah,
some people do.
Yeah, I was like, other people turn. I was like, I know other people turn to this as a crutch, and like I felt like I needed a crutch. There was not like they'd shut down all the sports leagues, all the stuff that you take for granted, like in a social setting. Didn't have. We'd moved into a new house. We'd moved over to like West Toronto, so
you'd had a baby, moved into a new house.
New house. So we like kind of the neighbors were kind of friendly, but everyone was like keeping their distance and stuff. Like, so we were doing different things, but yeah, it was very, very tough, and it was like tough on mine and Mag's relationship as well. I know she probably wanted to kill me at times, but I also felt like there was just things I had to do and get out. Yeah. Clear my head, go for a walk or do exercise. She probably felt like
with me on a Saturday.
Go skiing with you on a Saturday eventually, but even those were like locked up for like a long time as well. Yeah. So yeah, it was a bleak time. We've come out of it, and like we feel we've recovered a lot. Like Tiernan, when he arrived, second was a lot. It was just like night and day, because you like, I wasn't shy about like leaning on people. Like I remember when like Tiernan was born, and I was like, it was maybe a week later, and I was looking out the window and I saw one of our neighbors heading out with his son going to the playground. I literally ran out the door. I was like, I'm sending Haley with you. And I literally just
like, you were friends with this person.
We were friendly at this point, but I was like, you know the way you kind of do that with like family
at home. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, we just need to do this. I was like, I'll get them back at some point. But we just had to take advantage. And when people were offering, you know, it's like a very Irish thing of going, no, we're grand. I was like, actually, yeah, we could do it to help. Yeah. Actually, yeah, you bought groceries first. Thank you. Yeah. Not like, oh, you didn't need to do that. We were like, actually, this is like massive for us, because we just don't have the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the grandparents, the whatever, that like between the GA club. And then like as time went on, like we built up that relationship with our neighbors as well, that became friends at the kind of, I like joke like we I went to watch the Bills and the Chiefs last night over at one of our neighbors' houses, but Haley was going like, Daddy, where are you going? And I was like, we're going to Uncle Bo's house, because like we literally just call the neighbors like it's like Uncle Bo, Uncle Dorian, or whoever, because they're around so much, they almost like feel like uncles to the kids.
They are the equivalent of the family. People when I go home and I talk to people about, you know, the potential of maybe raising children in the city, and a lot of people in Ireland are obviously opposed to that from where we're from, and I always use you guys as an example. I said, I have a friend, married couple, they have 2 kids, they live in downtown Toronto. They do own a car, but you know, they share it, and the kids have a city Toronto life. And to me, it sounds like a really cool childhood, you know, going to the playground that's a walking distance, you know.
Yeah, they're like
school. That's
literally, there's 3 playgrounds within a couple hundred meters of us. we head any direction and you got a couple. Like the play facilities here are excellent. They're really between play facilities, and then I brought Haley swimming yesterday. Like the pools are free, like the community centers and the pools are free. There's a lot of programs for kids as well with Toronto City that they're not for profit, so you're paying next to nothing. You're paying like $50 for like 10 classes, and to like teach a kid like basketball or ball hockey or
I could
dance.
I could do some lessons. Are they for adults as well?
That's true. Yeah, they always book up too fast.
I'm still trying to learn how to swim, but that's another
Oh
story.
yeah, I know. You're not in the minority though. I remember we talked about that before.
Well, we went. The first time I met you was we went on a
Yeah,
trip
we went
to
to
Prince Edward County.
Prince Edward County, yeah.
And I leaned on you a bit because it was a drinking trip, and I knew you weren't drinking.
And I wasn't drinking, yeah.
I
We had other lads like more than making up for the two of us.
I was like, I'm going to lean on this fella. And, but I remember like it was obviously at Prince Edward County. So we did go down to the beach. I think there were 11 of us and 7 weren't able to swim.
Yes. Which I was like surprised, but I guess I think I just took it for granted because my mother had like gotten all of us, like all the kids, doing swimming lessons from a very young age.
Good for you, I'm delighted.
Yeah, but like as I go on and then I talk to like some of my other like friends, different friends group, and there's a lot of people that like just didn't get the swimming lessons, and it's obviously very nerve-wracking if you haven't had the formal lessons as a kid.
Yeah,
it's much harder than as an adult to step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, like I learned how to skate as an adult in Toronto, and I'm delighted I did. One of the benefits of COVID is I had a lot of time to practice it. Yeah. I suppose the negative of the worst thing that could happen, obviously there's a lot of worse things that could happen, but realistically what's going to happen if you make a mistake is you fall and you'll hurt your hip or your arm. Hopefully you won't hurt your head, obviously. The water scares the shit out of me, like to think that you could get in the water and if something goes wrong,
that's the end.
So that's why I'm reluctant to do it, but someday I'll stick to the skating for now.
There's lots of like lakes to enjoy in the province as well.
I know, and I feel
like I'm missing out on that.
I know, I feel like one of the benefits of like weekends away here is like go up to a cottage and it's all lakes. There's more in mountains in Ontario, so yeah, I don't. I tend to stick to the shade in the woods.
Do you?
Yeah, I do go into the water, but for me.
That's something we should talk about because it's hard to like articulate it to like Irish friends unless they've experienced it. But we had friends come over and visit us in August. They're from Ireland, but they're living in London and England. And I've been talking about like the cottage life, which when you think of a cottage in Ireland, they're thinking like a little thatched roof in like the middle of a couple of fields. Yeah. And it's obviously very different here because it gets so cold in the winter that it's just like wilderness. There's like a lot of wildlife, a lot of trees, lakes. You're just like literally just like so far away from the city. And you've got all these like little summer homes that are like dotted here, there, and everywhere. But like it's just amazing. It's like it's just like that ideal like life. And like so they stayed with us for a couple of days and then they went off and they like 3 days up north in a cottage, and they were like texting me going, this is unbelievable.
It is. It's beautiful. Yeah, like,
it's amazing.
It doesn't have to be Alberta and big mountains. Like it is, and you don't have to go that far away.
Yeah, it's just like you just hear the birds singing, and there's like you go for a hike, you never know you're gonna bump into coming around the corner. Yeah. Me and Mags did a hike. We were in Jasper a couple of years ago, and we were like hiking, and like the rain was really heavy, and like I'd literally said to Mags, I think it might have been a mistake doing this hike because the rain was just so bad. And like the the path through the forest was flooded, and like we just turned a corner and like there's straight away just 2 moose just ahead of us, like a mother and a calf, literally like 20 meters ahead of us on the track.
Trail, like
amazing. Yeah. So we just like trail them for another 20-25 minutes, and then they just like kind of disappeared off into the woods.
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing. Speaking of the wild outdoors, are we allowed to tell the story of my 30th birthday up north ski trip?
Yes, you can.
We can.
The famous trip.
Does Mags know this story?
Yes, she does. Yeah. Well, I had to account for it. When she asked me how the trip went, I was like, didn't quite go to plan.
well, 2 things happened. First of all, you allegedly now, I would say, got COVID at us. I don't want to take the blame for my birthday. For
Yeah, there was
COVID,
many
but
people got COVID, but yeah.
yeah, may or may not have
I was
happened
one
on
of
my
them, yeah.
birthday. My birthday for people listening was a ski trip up north, about an hour and a half away. Myself and Anna Burns shared our 30th, and we had went skiing for the day, great day, and then a night out. And myself and Dave, being the non-drinkers in the group, volunteered to drive, cover the drivers, and I was okay with that. Got back from the nightclub, the ranch in Barry. Shout out to the ranch, great spot. Got back and I was like, I'm just going to sleep. I'm going to bed. I'm not staying up with everyone. People were still up drinking and whatever.
Yeah.
And Claire, my partner, wakes me up and tells me, you have to go pick up Dave Berney.
Yeah.
Like, what?
So I'm a little bit of an early bird like you, but when you're out with the like a contingent, like which we were,
they're relying on you to bring.
There's a big contingent.
Well.
Yeah, I wanted to just head home, and then I had two lads with me. Had Dara and Brendan, who would not stop going on about McDonald's. So we literally had to like drive around Barry looking for McDonald's. We managed to find one, go through the drive-through. Then they forgot something, and then they had to run back into the McDonald's, and so then we got going again. And I have the GPS
it's about
on.
minus 10 degrees now. At least
it's about minus 10 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fucking, pardon my French, but it was freezing. So got the GPS on, and GPS decides to send me down like a little side country road. We weren't staying in Barry, we were staying outside of Barry, so we were in the countryside. And sends me down this road, and it's kind of sketchy straight away because we go down this hill, but you can't see that far ahead of you at like 4:00 in the morning. But I could see enough going, there's snow and ice, and like part of me was like, this doesn't look right. But then the other part of me was like, I literally have the live GPS on and it's sending me down here. So maybe this is just a patch of like ice and snow. So go down the hill and I like keep driving, and I was like, this is not looking good. And like, we're literally in the middle of nowhere. There's no houses, just like some random country road like you'd see back in Ireland. But like nobody living around there. Keep going. The snow gets heavier and heavier. The car starts like chugging. And then eventually just like won't go anymore. The wheels are just spinning. We just got stuck in this like really heavy snowbank. So first off, the two lads got out and tried to like push, but you said it was minus 10. I actually think it might have been colder with the wind chill. It might have been like minus 20 with the wind chill because it was freezing.
I'd say it was anyway.
And so we were, three of us were like shivering in the car. It was like starting to get cold because I didn't want to be running the engine as well if we weren't going anywhere because we didn't know how long we were going to have to stick it out. But there's no way we could sleep in the car because it was so cold. So started putting like messages out to the group and like calls and long story short, you showed up. So we're talking 4:30 in the morning now.
Battalion.
You showed up with a battalion of lads. Like, so there's 4 of you in the car. So it ended up with 6 people pushing, and then me trying to do the car. And then I think I got out and tried to push, and one of the other lads tried it. We tried a couple of different things. Most lads were kind of dressed for it, but there was like one lad in particular showed up in just a shirt and like
who was that? Tig, was it?
Tig, yeah. I don't know how he didn't get hypothermia. Like,
I don't think Tig knew
we were all
he
like,
signed up for it.
Yeah, I don't think, he wasn't in a good state. Let's just say that much. So like we had to abandon the car. And so you did like 2 runs. You brought like a couple of us back, 3 of us back.
When I connected you the second time, I thought I was going to come across lads like I thought he was
like, it's the type of weather that if you'd stayed out that night, you would have been like 3 dead bodies in the morning.
Yeah, no,
like,
I know we're joking, but it was that cold that if
it was that cold, yeah.
I always think when people are drinking on those nights, if someone does pass out with it's possible.
You're dead,
and you're left there for a few hours, you could die.
You're dead.
I know I don't belittle it at all, but you're the most sensible person I know.
Yeah, but I couldn't get it.
Left your car at the middle of the road.
Well, I was like freaking out. I don't think we got back, and it was like 5:00, and I literally don't think I got to sleep from like 5 to 7. And I got up, I was the first one up, and I was like, as soon as somebody else is up here, I'm going to like get a bit of help. And so I was like cleaning up for ages because I was the only one up, and then someone got up, and like we kind of had like a little talk, and there was one Canadian in the group, Erin.
Yeah.
She was one of the early ones. So jumped in the car with her and her boyfriend. She was like, don't worry, I've dealt with this the whole time. And went up, found a little shovel at the house, which actually was the big difference. And she just knew exactly what to do, managed to like dig out the 4 wheels. Yeah. She actually did the driving, and like me and him pushed, and she was able to do something with the steering wheel. And we got going as well. But I was literally couldn't sleep because I was like, I'm gonna go there and the car's gonna be gone.
Yeah, I know.
Someone, because it was just literally left in the middle of a country road. Someone's gonna hook this up to a tractor, and the car is going to be gone.
The rig bags.
Yeah.
The car is
Yeah,
gone.
yeah. I was like, that's not going to go down too well.
Yeah, it could have been worse. In fairness, you obviously no one was hurt or anything. Like,
Yeah.
it was more funny than anything else. It was just the fact that obviously you're the sensible fella trying to do the right thing. In fairness to the GPS, Canada up around that area as well, they will perfectly get rid of the snow, plow the snow on the main roads, but on the other roads,
And the
they
country
leave
roads.
them untouched, and they'll turn to literally skating rinks.
Yeah. And when you came during that night at like 4:00, we could see the lights, and then we were like, why the lights are stopped? Like we could see like, a couple hundred meters away.
I was like, yeah.
And then we could kind of see we could see the car lights turn off, and we're like, who is that? And then we could hear the kind of crunch, and we were like, is that the lads? And then you came up and you said, there's no way I'm driving in here, because we would have got stuck as well.
Yeah. Imagine that would have been.
Imagine the two cars that we were like, who are we going to call then? Like, yeah.
But I know, a good experience. And in fairness, you've always been good to do outdoor things. Like we've done a lot of skiing, snowboarding as well, and things like that. Is that a passion you think no matter where you live, you'll take with you?
I'd never done it before, the skiing or the snowboarding, and got into it here. Yes, one of the things I love. I feel like if you're coming to Canada, you got to embrace the culture. So there was a lot of bumps and bruises getting to learn again, like learning as an adult. It was the same with the skating, same with the hockey, learning as an adult, but I love it. And it's like the only way to get to like survive the winters here is to embrace the winters.
Unless you're really good at watching TV and not feeling bad about yourself.
Which wouldn't, I don't think it'd be either of us.
No, I get better at it. It's like one of my goals each year is to get better at watching TV shows without feeling guilty about it.
Yeah.
And I do think I'm improving, but it's not too bad.
Yeah.
The future. So I know you don't have anywhere set in stone. I don't expect you to say, but sorry, I bet you skipped over something. In the midst of buying a house and having kids and all that, you decided to start your own business.
Yes,
take even more risk.
I did. It's it's something what I consider very like one of the things that I really loved about the business culture here when I moved here. It's like a very American and Canadian thing compared to like an Irish thing, and to a certain extent a European thing as well. Is the level of entrepreneurship is like really celebrated here. Culturally in Ireland, you're not encouraged to take risks. The idea is like blend into the crowd. Don't don't
rock the boat.
There's a lot of people that are ready to cut you down so you don't get too big in think too big with your dreams, things like that. Very, very different here, where this is kind of like they call the US the land of opportunity. Like Canada has that like same culture as well. So when I started working here to begin, I was lucky to land into a place actually working with Keisha and Ernesta. Shout out to them, whose lovely podcast studio we're using right now. But very entrepreneurial organization, like big organization, like it was about 600 people, but like had been founded, 20 years previous by like a bunch of college students. And they still carry that culture. Like entrepreneurship was actually something that they celebrated a lot. And for me, for the very first time, work actually started to feel like a hobby as opposed to feeling like work. So having gotten that initial like entrance to it, and then as the years went by, the company suffered a lot through like 2020 with COVID. Like a lot of the industries that organization was in were really badly hit by COVID, and essentially downsized from like 600 people to a handful of people for a couple of years until COVID went away. But a lot of the people, those 500 and something people got scattered to the winds, and there's probably 7 or 8 of them went and set up their own businesses, at least within like my friend group in there. And I played it safe at the time. I went straight into another corporate role as director of finance in another like big company. Similar vibe, had it started from zero and had gotten to 2 billion in revenue in the space of like 20 years. So similar vibe, but they kind of had hit their peak as well. So the entrepreneurship aspect was gone. And so I was meeting with like these friends who would like set up their own businesses. They'd use their severances to set up their own businesses. And had like planted the idea in my head. And so similar to us moving to Canada a year before I set up my own business, like me and Mags had this like back and forth conversation of, if I were to go and set up my own business, like how would we make it work? What would the plan be? So by the time it actually, like when we opened up the end of 2022, I felt like I'd done a decent amount of preparation. I'd done this. This is like my vibe is always to give work a lot of notice. So in Canada, it's like give 2 weeks notice. I gave them like 4 months notice. I was like, I'm going out, I'm doing my own thing. Starting fractional finance. So really focusing on those kind of dreamers and the visionaries that have come up with a really good idea and have actually proven they have a really good idea, but then they need help moving it up the ladder and moving it through the levels, because there's different needs that they have in terms of cash flow and forward planning and understanding how their different product lines are doing or their different service lines are doing, or how like financially profitable different customers are or not. I felt like had a lot to give to those people. There's a lot of small businesses in Canada. I think something like, and the US as well, I think something like 70% of people across Canada and US are actually employed by businesses that are less than 100 people. So kind of still relatively small to medium. So moved into that space. Initially myself, it was like a slow grind. I started with managed to secure 2 days of work a week. Then I got 3 days of work a week. And it was like that for the first 6 months, where you take the pay cut, but you're like doing it in the belief that you can like build something. And just have grown today where there's 5 of us doing like technology and like kind of marketing and design services businesses across Canada and the US. Have done, like, I like to think we've done relatively well. I'm always benchmarking myself against other people as well, friends as well, and you always feel like you can move a little bit faster.
You're
but
ambitious, you're competitive.
In the grand scheme of things, I'm like very proud of what we built so far. I decided to name the business after Haley as well, because I was trying to think, you can get really smart, and there's a lot of people that will do like, Berney CPA or something, or put your name on that. And I was like coming to the motivation of like why I wanted to do it as well. I was like
timing of it and everything. Yeah.
The timing and like having been through COVID and seeing that, and then like the kids, like just, they bring so much joy. At that time it was like just Haley, but Mags was pregnant, and so we knew Tiernan was on the way. I just felt there was a way to do it where you didn't have to trade in one for the other, like, work for like everything else, like your friends and family. And so I deliberately decided to name the business after that, because I wanted to keep it as the North Star of like, not just for myself, but the businesses that we help are all about trying to help the founders or the owners actually realize the same vision, where finance is traditionally a very stressful side for people. There's a lot that goes into it. Like I've studied it for, probably 7 years. Like there's probably 4 years of full-time study, and then another 2 or 3 years of like part-time study, where we're doing like chartered accountant exams and CPA exams as well, along with like a master's in accounting and a degree in commerce. So I could see how it would be stressful for people. And I felt I had a framework to reduce the stress and help them grow their businesses as well, without having that stress. Because in a smaller business space, they don't have the same amount of resources. So they tend to just focus on the basics, as like, get my taxes filed at the end of the year, get some sort of financial statements. Maybe they'll use their bank as like a benchmark, when there's actually so much more that they're leaving off the table.
Look, if I like this, we talked about this podcast is a passion project, but if I wanted to monetize and all that type of thing, I haven't an idea of where to go, and I'd the nerves like of even thinking about it. But to have someone like you helping me with that would be fantastic. So it is nice to know that you obviously have a massively positive impact on people's lives.
Actually, I actually, let me give a little bit of advice, because I get this question quite a lot. because there is a lot of people that think about it, and I'll answer. So people will frequently come to me and they'll say, I'm thinking of starting up my own business. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start or what I should be considering. And you can essentially establish it to like 5 like main things to get started. And actually, sorry, and they also think about what's the cost involved. I say there's 5 things you can get the whole business started for about $500 ish, which is not like bad. It like help you navigate the like legal and financial and all that side of things. So number 1 is like the actual legal company. So traditionally people used to go to lawyers. There's now software out there that makes it really easy to create a limited company. A limited company being that it's separate from you as a individual. So if like someone were to sue you for doing a bad job, they could only sue the company, not you individually. So setting up like a limited company, there's really good software. I used Owner, OWNR. It was like $600 and it did everything for me. The articles of incorporation, the business number, like filing who the director was, because you have to be registered at both a provincial level and then a federal level as well. So it does all that paperwork and registers you essentially with the CRA, with the government as like a business, and you go through a process where you can actually check your name, like the name you have in mind isn't already taken, and then purchase that name. So that's number 1, like call it $600. Number 2 is a bank account. Like people make a mistake, especially at the start, and they try and do same bank account for individual and business. That's a big mistake. You cause yourself more headaches in the long term, because as a business, you do have to file taxes separately. So if you get everything mixed up, you spend a lot of time going through statements trying to unpiece it, when setting up a business bank account is actually straightforward. It just so happened Owner were doing a partnership with RBC at the time. So I set up a business bank account with RBC and I got like $300 back. So like net between the bank account and then all the like legal work to set up the company, $300.
That's incredible.
Which is incredible. And then number 3, if you're serious about the business and you think it will be successful, once you're over 30,000 in revenue in a year, you have to start charging HST. So it makes sense early on if you're relatively serious about registering with the CRA. So setting up a CRA, my business, and registering for a CRA account file a HST account. So that's free, but it's just something that people forget about at the start, and they try and take care of it afterwards. And that by that stage, the business is taken off and there's already a million things to do. So it's one of the things that you can do well in advance. And number 4, people neglect their accounting, or they'll try and do it in Excel or paper, but small business accounting is actually very easy now and is very cheap. For $20 to $50 a month, you can get a good accounting system. QuickBooks and Xero are the two kind of big accounting providers in the small and medium-sized business space. We use QuickBooks, like we just specialize in QuickBooks, so I can speak more to that. But just having something as basic as that for tracking your financials goes a long way further than trying to do it yourself manually. Like QuickBooks has actually built like a whole framework to make it really easy for someone to be tracking how they're doing. So by the time you're getting to a point that you need financials to grow the business, you've already got that like foundation in place. So you're talking, look, their lowest price I think is $20 a month. So you're talking $240 in a year. And the last thing of advice I'd have, number 5, is you go to pay yourself. There's payroll taxes to be done. If you're doing a DIY, you're a 1-person or 2-person shop, you want to make sure that you're paying your payroll withholding taxes, so you're not hit with a massive tax bill at the end of the year. There's any number of payroll providers in Canada. Like the main 2 are QuickBooks Payroll and then WagePoint. Again, $30 a month. Very simple. You do set up, you put your name, your address, your social security number, how much you want to pay yourself on a monthly basis. It basically takes care of the rest. It'll take the money out of your bank account. It'll send whatever it needs to send it'll calculate EI, CPP, send it to the CRA. it's great. And then for for US business, there's an even better one down in the US called Gusto. It does exactly the same thing. Payroll in the US is a lot more complicated because you're paying, sometimes you have to pay like city as well as the state and the federal level as well. But there's so much really good tools. It's just like a lot of small business owners don't know about it. So my job is actually just trying to get the word out there and actually help them.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
You're even motivated me. Like there's a very small
advice.
entrepreneur in me. It's not, but like even just to hear something like that, to know. But the reason I've never acted on it is because of the fear of not knowing how to do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And also maybe the lack of willingness to be able to ask for help. Maybe that's an Irish thing as well. I don't know. But yeah, you've explained it there in unbelievably clear, concise terms.
I hope that's helpful. I actually get that question like a lot. I feel like that question comes up to me at least once every quarter where someone asks me. I felt it was like worth mentioning.
Yeah, definitely. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll wrap up now shortly, but just again, I'm not looking for a definitive answer, but what does the future hold for the Berneys, or where does the future hold for the Berney family?
I think in the short, medium term, it's Toronto. We do have this romantic thing of like Ireland at some point. I sometimes joke I'll send Haley to boarding school in Ireland, like looking at boarding schools, because I do feel like the education is very good in Ireland. I think
he said it's a joke. I know for a fact.
I'm like jokes that half serious, but I know Mags would never let me do that.
Oh yeah.
We're here for the interim. Things always change very fast for us. Like we can, on a whim, we moved to Canada. On a whim, we decided to extend. On a whim, I kind of decided to go traveling for a couple of months in South America. We did like a 4-month honeymoon as well in India and Southeast Asia. So it's here for now, but then you never know.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Good way to finish. Lovely.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks very much, Dave.
I like